Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our meeting for of the Cabinet for the 28th of January. You're very welcome if you're watching out there in YouTube land, and to our members, I'm very grateful for your attendance. First of all, item one is apologies for absence. I have been notified of one. Councillor Anne Allen has indicated that she's doing she's making a presentation award tonight at the Triangle Awards, something she's very closely involved with. So I think it's right that she should be there to do that. So are there any others, Mr. Twyman?
No, everybody else is present.
Okay, thank you. So item two then is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest anybody wishes to make in relation to any items on today's agenda? No, thank you. Item three then is confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of the Cabinet held on the 10th of December. Seems like a long time ago, but there we were. Are members happy to approve that as a good record? Yeah, I think that's universal. Thank you very much indeed. Item four then is to announce whether we have any urgent items to consider tonight, and I don't believe we have. Mr. Twyman, is that right?
That's correct, Chairman.
Thank you. I can't seem to see on here. We're normally asked to note the arrival of the minutes of the CAP. Has that dropped off our agenda for some reason?
No, it's there, Chairman.
Where is it then? Which item is it on my agenda?
It's agenda item 5 on the agenda.
Oh, you're quite right. I'm so sorry. I haven't turned the page. I've got to learn to turn the page. There we are. Item 5 then is to receive the minutes of the Cabinet Advisory Panel held on the 25th. I think that was chaired by Matthew on Monday. All members have had that, I think, sent to them, yes? Great. Thank you very much indeed. Item 6 then, references from committees. There are none that I've been aware of. Moving straight on then to the main items. Item 7 is the draft rent arrears policy, and I think Cabinet Advisory Panel did have something to say. I'm sorry to be facing away if anybody's watching this. I'm reading it on my desk, so I'm sorry if I'm not trying to ignore the meeting. So I think on Monday there were members involved in this, interested in this, and I think many of the issues actually, Mr. Dosab was there to answer as head of housing, and I think many of them really were technical issues about the way in which we collect rent and the way in which we use our powers in relation to rent. I should make on that front, we are, I think, a very benign housing office of a very housing authority. We have a very good record of working with our tenants and leaseholders to make sure that our service is kind of people shaped for them, and they have a big say in the way it works. There was also one issue which arose, which related, I think, to the way in which we send letters to people, even during these difficult days, related to rent arrears. And I think Mr. Dosad explained as adequately as I think he needed to that I'm afraid a lot of this is process. We do have to send letters of a certain type and without any ambiguity, because they do become matters of legal record in those circumstances. But I will stress again that it is not our practice or will at the moment to make life difficult for anybody. But I hope those who are behind in their rent do understand that when they receive a letter from us, it has to be of a certain legal framework, because that's what's required of us to send, and they're not intended to be anything other than that. So in terms of our rent arrears policy, Mrs. Green, do you wish to speak to this, or is it fairly self-explanatory? It's up to you.
I think it's quite self-explanatory, Chairman. You've picked up all of the issues that were raised by CAP on Monday night. But as well as picking up the legislative changes and changes to the rollout of the universal credit, the policy does put information into people as to our support measures that we have in place, and all of the signposting and work that we do with tenants, exactly along the lines as you've just set out, to help them to meet their obligations as tenants. So yeah. I would commend the policy to you.
Thank you. I'm not sure every authority does what we do. We have a dedicated officer who's there not to collect rents, not to deal with housing, not to deal with any problems they might have. We have a dedicated officer solely to help people with their financial arrangements and their financial well-being and their general stability and viability. And it's quite unusual, I think, for a housing office to have an officer dedicated to that. And so if anyone is in that situation, then clearly we're there to help. Again, as I say, our beginning and our start and beginning point of this is always that we want to be a good social landlord. And the bit that matters to us is the social bit. We don't want to be a good landlord in the way that private landlords are good landlords. We want to be a social landlord, and we want to make sure that we're looking at the whole family and the whole person, and trying to do what we can to assist people. There were a number of other issues that were raised. I haven't raised them all. They are in the minutes, but I think all of them were matters of process, such as what happens to those without recourse to funds. And of course, the answer straightforwardly is that as they move through the process of becoming adopted into the British system and with recourse, then of course they are perfectly able to establish residency here in Dartford and build up that record, which will give them access to our housing like anyone else. But it's true that there isn't a particular system in place in relation to our council housing for those without recourse to funds. But of course, there are lots of other things there to support people, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. So, okay, is there any member want to raise any issues on this? It is an important report, and it is about the stuff of people's lives. So, yeah, Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chairman. I suppose a few points. First is, when we went into COVID lockdown back a year ago, I became quite interested in arrears in both council tax and in our rent. And so Mr. Dosad has been kindly providing a regular report to me as to what's going on. And I think we have something to be proud of. I mean, in both those topics, we have been incredibly forbearant with people which are experiencing problems. The appendix to this report actually outlines in quite a lot of detail a breakdown of the different arrears and where the arrears are. And you can see it's large. Always when you look at these types of things, it's when it's black and white, you feel as that there's as many words written about the end, taking possession orders and taking possession of the properties, there is about the stuff at the beginning, which is all the signposting and the helping and the seeing people through. But of course, in reality, it's not that weight. The weight is all up front and all about helping people with absolutely the minimum going through to the end. Indeed, at the moment, we're pretty much precluded from getting to the end. The only thing I would sort of say, though, having been proud of what we do, and I think as a cabinet we should be proud, we should also recognise that it is the rent that pays for the service. And without the rent coming in, of course, we can't deliver the brilliant service and the upgrades to all the properties and the estates that we're doing. And so there is a time when it is right that you separate those that can't pay from won't pay. And it's those won't pay people, then they should be on notice that we will ask them to repay their arrears, and we won't be forgetting it. But that's such a small number. The biggest number are the ones that can't at the moment, the ones that are struggling. And I can assure Cabinet from the work I've done that's being handled incredibly professionally and incredibly supportive. So I don't really have anything other than to support the review, but given I've spent a lot of time looking at it, I thought I'd better make that clear.
No, it's very helpful. Thank you. And I think actually during his questioning on Monday, Mr. Dosad made that point about how very few, even in normal times, cases move towards that final step. But you're quite right. There's also, it's not just about where the money comes from. There's also a question of equity. I mean, if people are paying their rent around our estate and they're doing the right thing and contributing as local people to the maintenance of our social housing stock, there's nothing worse than finding that you've got an authority which is loose in terms of collecting it from others. And you've got to have that stability, and everyone's got to have confidence in the system that you are doing your best to collect what is, let's not forget, a highly subsidised rate in the first place, or rent in the first place. So yeah, that's fine. Okay, well, the policy is there. Is it, I'm just going to ask this question, actually, I should know this. Is it a brand new policy, or is it something that we are updating? I mean, why is it before us as a policy?
It is a review of an existing policy, but it is a substantial rewrite, Chairman. The previous policy dates back to 2013, and of course, since that time, universal credit has come along, which has had major implications, and there has been various pieces of protocol issued by courts and by government in terms of the protocols and the process we have to follow. So although it's a review, it is a substantial review.
Yeah, fine. Thank you. I didn't mention the issue of universal credit. It was mentioned on Monday, but again, I think it was adequately answered that in relation to why people receive a letter very early on when their universal credit payment may not be available straight away. Again, it's part of our legal remedy process. We have to write a letter which has no ambiguity in it. And the simple fact is if someone hasn't paid their rent in that first week period, then they're likely to get a letter from us reminding us. And part of that actually is to help people identify when they're in some trouble. Not necessarily, I mean, people who are new to UC probably are already aware of exactly that their financial position is, but in normal terms, writing to people early is not intended to be a negative step. It's intended to be a positive introduction to the things we can do to help them. So that's why we do it. And but I can reassure people we're not moving towards any draconian actions ever, actually, but particularly at these times. Okay, are members happy then with that report, and we can approve the report to be approved, and that we're also asking for the Strategic Director of External Services, the current job title, to be granted delegated authority to make in-year amendments to that. Clearly, those responsibilities will transfer to the new post going forward. Members happy with that? Cool. Thank you very much indeed. Item 8 then is the National Non-Domestic Rate Relief. Again, I think a straightforward but complicated issue. Sarah, can you try and make it less complicated?
Okay, thank you. So this report sets out where we will grant discretionary business rate relief in 21-22. So the categories of business that we would grant that relief to are largely, well, they are unchanged from previous years, but the report sets out in more detail those types of businesses and the typical percentages of relief that we would grant. It also details those businesses that we're proposing to give discretionary rate relief to in 21-22, and it's for members to approve.
That's great, thank you. And there's been no, we're not getting tighter on this, are we? I note from the report, it seems we're running forward with the same criteria. So if some organisation is currently enjoying that support, they will continue to enjoy it, providing they meet the same criteria. Is that right?
That's the case, yes. We're certainly not strict, making the criteria any stricter than it has been previously.
That's fine. Well, I do know, although it's a very small report, this one, I know it's important to those organisations that receive it, a whole range of charities and other organisations. So I know they depend upon it. So I'm sure they'll be relieved that we're pressing ahead with it as we've declared here. Okay, the recommendation is that we grant the maximum level of discretionary rate relief for the organisations listed in Appendix A. Members happy with that? Great, thank you very much indeed. Item 9 then is the planning services sub-delegations. This is really just about smoothing our work at the moment. I didn't actually ask whether this is a particular COVID response or whether it's a general bit of governance that needs doing, but Mrs. Green, I guess this is it you or is it this? Now this legitimately is between the two of you, isn't it, or not? Have I got that wrong?
Well, it will be. It will be, but at the moment it is me.
Okay. All right.
I mean, this is a pretty straightforward issue, Chairman. As you say, this is about smoothing the process. And it's because, particularly with regards to the neighbourhood plans, the requirements laid out in regulations are very precise. Some of the timescales are very, very tight indeed. And more importantly, the council has absolutely no discretion. So it makes sense for this to be delegated to officers. The other aspect, which is the still deferment payment request, that is in relation to COVID. I would just say that although we have given you all of the planning services sub-delegations, it is only those on page 81 and page 86 in relation to the still deferment and the neighbourhood plans that are relevant to this report.
Okay, all right. Well, that seems eminently sensible and eminently straightforward. Is there any member who wants to comment on this? No? Okay, members happy to approve? Thank you very much. Item 10 then is the draft calendar of meetings. Now, I noticed this was a subject of some discussion. I think a couple of councillors or one councillor talked about school holidays and whether we could avoid meetings at I think it was in the first week of school holidays, the end of July. I noted Mr. Twyman's response on the evening, and I thought he was spot on. I mean, really, we have quite a lot of business to do, and our work doesn't really stop. And so it's important that we have these working. We do try to avoid those key holiday periods, but then very soon after that, we're asked to avoid political conference periods as well. So we lose kind of quite large swathes of our calendar if we're not careful. So I think we do try to make as many reasonable adjustments as possible. But August has traditionally been recognised as a holiday year. I know that takes on an entirely different meaning now when we talk about August being a holiday year this year. It's obviously in a very different context, but that notwithstanding, I think we do have that business to move on. And of course we do. I'm not meaning this to say in any other way we don't value the input of every member, but we do have pretty good substitution requirements or substitution allowances for most committees, and I think it's important for us to get on with that business. But we have noted the issue, and I think if I'm honest, we've noted it in previous years, which has led to this particular calendar, which has a large swathes of exclusion for August holidays, school holidays, and party conference period. So I think we've already done that, and any further extension will knock out even more weeks for us. Mr. Twyman, that's kind of right, isn't it? Nothing I've said there is completely off the wall.
No, Chairman, that's absolutely spot on. One other point I would just make about the business that is scheduled for the last week of July. It includes a General Assembly of the Council meeting. And the reason that this is held late in July is that there are certain financial reporting requirements that we were struggling to meet if we held GAC earlier in July.
Yeah, fine. Okay, well, I think we have to understand that the work of the council goes on 52 weeks, and I think we do try. It's not for want of trying, and we're certainly not trying to create these meetings, this calendar, with any sense of making it awkward for members. Just the reverse. We've done an awful lot of work to make them acceptable, but I think there are periods where if we push it too far back, as you say, you either don't have the data and you miss deadlines, or there's such a long gap between meetings that you start to be irrelevant and you make mistakes that way. So okay, well, if members are happy with the draft calendar meetings, what I will say is that obviously in-year changes are still pretty clear. Yes, Councillor, I've got you. In-year changes are still relatively common and can happen, and chairs do have the discretion to approach to ask for revisions if there are particular important circumstances. So I think we try and be as flexible as possible. Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chairman. I have two observations. One is an observation about the dates, and second is about the timing of the meeting. The first on the dates. On the indicative dates in Appendix A, in April 2022, we seem to have a Cabinet Advisory Panel and scrutiny on the same day. I don't know whether that was designed and whether it's acceptable. Might create a conflict for people. Oh. Hopefully everyone's got that. Page 109 of the report, April 22. The second point is about the timing. When we went into lockdown and we started these virtual meetings, we were asked to move the timing of the meeting to earlier so that we could have IT support for them. I believe now that IT support isn't as required. Most of the cabinet officers, most of the officers manage their own meeting. So it would be nice if at some point during this year we could consider going back, because at the moment these meetings at 5 overlap with my working day. Yeah. So you know, it's quite discriminatory against those of us that have to work. Perhaps easier for me because running my own business, I just tell people I'm going to go to a council meeting. But if it was one of my employees, I wouldn't be very happy about it. Always driving out early and coming to meetings at 5 o'clock.
Sure.
And I do want to show a bit of leadership. So I'm not insisting, I'm just asking that it can be reviewed and reverted back as soon as possible, given that we no longer have a lot of IT support for the meetings. We're familiar with them.
Sure. I think at the moment, I don't disagree with you. I think at the moment we're looking for that trigger point, which will change everything, aren't we? I mean, at the moment, I don't think we're close to that trigger point, and I think I'm not sure the IT support is the only reason. I mean, it is an important reason because, quite frankly, if we don't have IT support, you don't realise you need it until you need it. And if all this disappeared suddenly, we all disappeared off the screen. Suddenly, Mr. Blake would become enormously popular with all of us, and if he's not here, it would be awkward. So I think at the moment, while under these COVID conditions, we probably will carry on. But I take the point. There's going to be a kind of a switch day, and let's make it a day of celebration where we can actually start meeting again, or indeed coming back to a new normal in terms of Zoom meetings, which means we can have different approaches. And I do take the point that this does intrude on the working day for people, and I think we're conscious of that. Okay, Mr. Twyman, on the issue of the clash between scrutiny and cabinet advisory, is that something you spotted, or have we caught you out?
You've spotted my deliberate mistake, which was only put in to ensure that I could tell the members that actually read the report. But no, it is a mistake, and I will go back and revisit that before it goes to GAC.
So it's not a printing error. It's actually they are on the same day at the moment. One needs to be moved. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
That's fine. Okay, cool. Thank you very much indeed, and well done for spotting that. That's good stuff. Good job. Okay, members happy with the calendar then? Yeah. Okay, thank you. That brings on then to item 11, which is the final item tonight, which is the delegated items understanding order 38 for street naming. Again, this is relatively routine. It won't affect any of our consultation, as I understand it. So members will still be consulted about these names. It just comes down to the final issue of related to the approval of them at the end of the process. That's right, isn't it? We're not going to take away members' consultation rights on this. Every member will know about new street names. Is that right? I'm getting lots of nods. That's fine. Okay. Any member on this? Cool. That's fine. Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Well, I think that brings our meeting to a close. I don't think there's anything else today. Alan, I've not missed anything, have I?
No, that's the end of the agenda, Chairman.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you very much indeed. I'll always just do these homely roundups at the end of cabinet in case anybody is watching on YouTube. I think Dartford is, I was looking at figures today, and Dartford is in a good place in relation to both testing and vaccine rollout. I know that there are going to be issues with vaccine where people are between two tiers and they wonder why they're seeing some colleagues and friends in other parts of the country or even in the county or even in the town who are getting vaccines ahead of them. My advice is that actually the advice at the moment from the NHS is that if there is a particularly efficient piece of vaccination going on, that they should press on and move through the population into the tiers. I think that from a scientific point of view, that makes sense. Everybody that we can get vaccinate, certainly the first two tiers in relation to vulnerability will soon be replaced by activity, because it's important to put the vaccine where people are most vulnerable and most likely to suffer ill effects. But the next phases, of course, come to those who might be more active in the workplace and other places. And so they all have value, these vaccines. I will make a quick word. The issue of BAME acceptance of vaccines has become an issue in the last week or so. Let me just put on the record, these vaccines are designed for the physiology of a human being. They are the ultimate equal rescue, and they absolutely apply and should be taken up, in my opinion. These are medical interventions, so no one can force anyone to have a vaccine. But please, please, please do understand the value of the vaccine. It could make, well, all the difference in the world. And I was reading today that the vaccines, the AstraZeneca vaccine, was developed by a Muslim doctor and his partner. Of course, those delivering and working in our NHS, very high number of fantastic BAME contributions to our health service, our science community, our education and academic worlds. They have all worked on this, and I've seen increasing numbers of celebrities. I think we're meant to call them influencers now. People who've got jobs and you know about them are now on the internet doing their best to say to people, please have this vaccine. And I would certainly repeat that. Please, whatever your circumstances, please, if you're offered the vaccine, please make sure you take it if you feel you can. Testing. In Dartford now, we've opened up, as I think you know, the Acacia site for symptomatic testing, which adds to the two asymptomatic sites at both Fairfield and the Swanscombe Centre. So I think in terms of those who need assistance, the sites at Swanscombe, let me make a plea again for anyone from Swanscombe. They've seen quite a low level of response in relation to others. And so there's plenty of vacancies at Swanscombe. If somebody feels they need to get tested, it needs to be done every 2 weeks, or you can have it done every 2 weeks. Please do get onto the website at KCC. Just type in KCC asymptomatic testing and book your appointment. With regard to the symptomatic testing, it's a little more to consider if you've got symptoms, particularly in terms of your journey to it and how you get there. But there's plenty of advice on the website. So again, if you need advice, and if you find that the website isn't accessible to you, you don't understand anything, please do call us at the council, and we'll try and signpost and help you. It's very important we stick together through all this, and I know we will. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you ever so much indeed for colleagues for attending, and we'll see you at our next meeting, whenever that is. Stay safe, everybody. Take care.
Cheers, everyone.